You're listening to the M3 Podcast, a weekly micro mini message designed to encourage, inspire, and maybe even make you smile this week. And now, this week's M3. Hey, I hope you're having a great week. Thanks for watching the M3 this week. As you look behind me, you see tables and chairs set up. We're getting ready for our Easter Sunday celebration. We're going to gather together as a church, share a meal together, and celebrate the resurrection of Jesus and the new life that he offers each one of us because of his resurrection and his promise that we can be made new because of his resurrection and the life that he gives us. But before we get to this celebration, though, we travel a week in the church called Holy Week. And it's a week that mirrors the experience that Jesus had that last week of his life here on earth. It's a week of incredible highs. This Sunday is Palm Sunday, when the crowds would gather and they would cheer for Jesus and they would say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And it's a week of incredible lows for Jesus, when he would suffer denial and betrayal and temptation. And that temptation would come to a climax in a garden, when he would face the decision, is he going to drink the cup that is before him? The cup which he said is the cup of the forgiveness of sins in the new covenant. But you know, the decision to drink that cup began in another garden years and years before that. God would create all that exists, and he would look upon his creation, the men and the women, Adam and Eve, that he formed out of the dirt and breathed his life into, and he'd look upon it and say, "It is very good." But Adam and Eve would face a testing and a temptation, and they would forget who they are, and they would forget who God is, and they would allow the serpent to lie to them and deceive them, and they would doubt God's goodness for them. And because of that, sin would infuse, and shame would infuse their life, and would infuse all of creation. And it was at that moment that God had a choice. Would he reject creation, or would he take the cup and drink it, the cup of forgiveness? I mean, even as God banished them from the garden, it was an act of his grace that he showed. His grace that said, you know, instead of giving you the death that you deserve because of your rejection of me, I'm going to drink the cup with my blood, and I'm going to suffer death. And then we'd see that come to a climax. And everything that God does climaxes there in another garden, when Jesus is faced with the burden weighed down upon him and the decision to take that cup. Because the cup that Jesus drinks is the cup of forgiveness. It is the cup of renewal and transformation. It's the offer to us that when we have turned from God, he still loves us. It's his radical and incredible love that we see that day in the garden as Jesus faces his temptation. So join us this week as we celebrate and walk through Jesus' darkest moment that will lead us to this point when we will gather and celebrate the life that he gives to us. Let us live this week with gratitude that Jesus willingly, no matter how, we see him suffering incredibly this week in many, many different ways, yet he willingly submitted himself to the Father that you and I might have life, that you and I might be made new, that we might live a life without shame, and that we might be able to live our lives as he lived, tempted, tested, but without sin, because of what Jesus will do this week. Thanks for watching the M3. Celebrate together, and we'd love to have you join us if you're in town. Thanks. Have a great week. Thank you for listening to this week's M3. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player. You might also enjoy our blog, The Milk Can, online at jumpingjersey.org. Have a great week.